Like a 10-second. Oh,
okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Uplift. It's lovely to see you. Hey, shall we have a chat about imposter syndrome? Come on and join us. We've got Selfworth Sam today. Hi there. Welcome to Uplift. My name is Sarah Wade. I'm a lover of life, a nature lover, an art therapist, a life coach, and so much more. I'm really excited today. We've got my amazing co-host, as per usual, best-selling author Neil Thrussell joining us.
Thank you, Sarah. It's good to have you back on the show. I was lost two weeks ago without you. I had some bumps without you helping me along. So you were missed, and I'm glad that you had an opportunity to just look after yourself. So
Me too.
as Sarah said, my name is Neil Thrussell, best-selling author, philosopher, lover of life, and I owe everyone an apology in the internet world. I tried to start the show an hour early.
You know what? That happens to all of us. Like, I don't know about you, but I've made mistakes before and I've tried to be perfect. And hey, I don't know about you, but I'm more perfect than perfect. And joining us from LA is a man that I met about a decade ago in Perth in Western Australia. We've got Selfworth Sam Osborne joining us.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? Hey, Sarah. Hey, Neil. It's so good to be here.
It's lovely to have you and great to reconnect. Hey, we're obviously here talking about imposter syndrome. So, Sam, I was wondering, can you help us and the audience identify what is imposter syndrome?
Yeah, there's a few different ways you can define what it is. I'll start with a few basic explanations and then we can go into different variations of it. But essentially, imposter syndrome is when someone feels like an imposter because they feel out of their depth in their role at work or whatever role in life they have. It could be as a parent. Some people feel like they're not good enough as a parent, but it's usually to do with someone's intelligence or their accomplishments or their achievements in life. And they don't feel like they've earned them through hard work, but in fact that they've earned them through luck, or that maybe someone made a mistake and they got to the position because that other person made a mistake. For example, university students might feel like an imposter because they were accepted into university and they're starting to think, well, how could that have been? I'm not that intelligent. That someone must have made a mistake to let me into university. So there's a lot of self-doubt in imposter syndrome. And it can also be to do with how much you feel you deserve in life. So some people feel that they don't deserve their accolade or their praise or compliments. So that's the initial sort of definition. You could also say it's when people they are challenged by internalizing their achievements, meaning they cannot really feel on the inside that their success was due to them. They can never really feel that their intelligence or their skill was the ingredient that allowed them to be successful. And they usually credit outside things like other people or, like I said, luck. So that's the general idea of imposter syndrome.
Makes sense. I mean, I can relate to all of that. What about you, Neil?
Absolutely. But my little mind is going, I love Selfworth Sam, but did Selfworth Sam always have a high self-worth, or was it something that you grew into?
Okay, yeah. So about a decade ago, I'd say it was, I experienced imposter syndrome for the first time when I wanted to become a professional entertainer. And I wanted to go and motivate young people in schools in Australia, which is where I was living at the time. And specifically, I wanted to be a human beatboxer. And I wanted to entertain young people with my strange talent of being able to imitate drum beats and sound effects with my voice. And even though I was good at it, and even though many people said that I was good at it, that I still felt that I wasn't good enough. And I felt like a bit of a fraud trying to go and do this hip hop beatboxing thing. It really felt like that I didn't have the self-worth there to go and do it. So that was the first time that it started for me. And as a result, I procrastinated for many years, actually, before I actually went and asked people if they wanted me to come and perform for them.
Oh, true.
That was the first time. But I eventually got some bookings as an entertainer. And while I was doing it, naturally, I felt like an imposter because I was still going through the self-worth issues of needing other people's validation and approval for who I wanted to be. So that was the sore point, or what I call the self-worth wound. Like everybody has a self-worth wound, something that ails them, something that is like a little thorn in their side. So that was the beginning of my self-worth journey. Funnily enough, when I decided to become, the imposter phenomenon expert, I started to feel like an imposter once again. And I felt, well, I'm not a specialist in the field. I don't have PhD at the end of my name. I'm not a doctor or a psychologist. And I'm looking online at books that are published by people who are well experienced, and just thinking, I'm not as good as these people. So there's a lot of comparing going on. And I started to feel like a fake once again, like I'm out of my depth here. Who am I to think that I can go and educate people about this? So it's been something that is still new to me, like feeling really like a high or a balanced self-worth around who I am and what I do. So maybe people can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly can. And my experience is there's been like a devil at every level. Every time you bust through that glass ceiling, you're like, oh, should I be here? Actually, yes, I got through that last glass ceiling and I'm freaking awesome. That's why I'm here. And it takes a little bit of time sometimes to bring yourself up. Now, can you relate? Has that been your experience too?
Absolutely. Sometimes the word author gets stuck in the throat because I have 3 books, international bestseller, but sometimes, and depends on where I'm at, in which crowd and that, I go, it's like, I'm an author. And then I'm like, I'm an author. And it's just where I'm at. Every once in a while I get hit with it. And especially when I send out an email and I'm going, and I edited that? Oh my goodness.
Hey, we're all human, we all get our words out or we all communicate in different ways. And I think that's interesting to pick up on the fact that, our words, as far as books go, is pretty much 100% of the content. However, when you're having a conversation, words isn't the only thing that we go by. So if you were to go to an event, Sam, would you dress up for it these days, or would you feel comfortable going in your regular everyday clothes to discuss imposter syndrome?
Well, I do both because I enjoy wearing whatever I want to most of the time. Usually, like, I'll just wear a t-shirt to be casual because I think that puts people at ease. And then if I need to look, like more corporate and put on a suit, then I will do that. But I also enjoy wearing a suit. So I've learned that they're kind of like costumes, and it's about my audience and putting them at ease. And in fact, making about your audience reduces imposter syndrome as well. If you come from a place of service for other people, I found that really helps, because imposter syndrome is a pretty much an inside your head kind of thing. And a lot of the time people try to talk about, how do I get out of my head? Well, I say you don't get out of your head. You can't do that, but you can get into your heart. And you can get into your heart and serve other people. And that is basically think about what it is like to be in their shoes and go and serve them. And you will forget imposter syndrome is even there. So that's one little tip that people can do. If you're feeling like an imposter, serve other people.
Love that. I love
Cool,
that.
right? It's just like, just make it about them. You might have heard of narcissism. And narcissism is usually connected to imposter syndrome. Some people say it's one of the causes. Like if you have narcissistic tendencies, you're a bit full of yourself. You have a lot of you're a bit self-absorbed. And as a result, you think about yourself. Interestingly, the psychological term narcissist or narcissism comes from a Greek mythology, which I love. I'm going to tell you this little story about this young, beautiful or handsome young man named Neil Thrussell. No, wait, whoa.
Wrong story.
Wrong story. No, it was, his name is Narcissus, and he's a Greek mythology character, very good looking young man, very full of himself. And one day this beautiful forest nymph approaches him and says, Narcissus, I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Let's get married. And Narcissus, being very full of himself, basically denies this young lady and breaks her heart. Well, the goddess of love, Aphrodite, hears about it, and she casts a spell on Narcissus that he'll never forget. She casts this spell so that as he's walking home one day through the forest and he sees this pond, and he sees his reflection in the pond, and the spell was that when he sees his reflection, he will fall in love with his own image. And as a result, he is never able to break the spell and dies by the side of the pond looking at his own image. So the themes for us is self-deception, and that imposter syndrome is a kind of self-delusion. What we're thinking about ourselves too much. So the lesson is, don't do that. Instead, if a forest nymph comes up to you and says, I want to take your hand in marriage, you should do it, right? It'll be a much more happier life. But imposter syndrome is a kind of self-deception. We cannot see our authentic self. I think imposter syndrome is kind of got a mindset of, I have to make things perfect. Everything needs to be a certain way. But I believe the authentic self that people are looking for is a balance and an acceptance of our good and our bad. That's objective. That's authentic. To admit that we have a light and a dark side. From that central point, you can carry on with confidence.
Yes.
I love it, because as so many people, as they go on to their personal development path and their spiritual path and their self-empowerment, self-development, whatever you want to call the path that they're going on for self-discovery, many people forget that they contain a dark side. And I love that you recognize it, and that it's you honor that it's the balance is when you see both sides of yourself. You don't have to like the dark side, but you need to see both sides of it. So thanks for bringing that up, Sam.
Yeah, it's one of the most renewing ideas for the self. It renews you to think that it's okay to look into your darkness and to love that part of yourself. And I believe that if you don't love and appreciate all aspects of yourself, you can never fully love yourself. And a lot of the time people walk around thinking, I want to be liked for who I am. But if you cannot like both sides of yourself, what chance have other people got? So the journey of imposter syndrome is really a lot of self-healing. I've got a great story, a really graphic story, if you want to hear it.
I'm up for it. Neil, what do you reckon? Should we let him go?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So in about the year 2008, I'd just come back from living in Germany. I went and lived back in Perth, Western Australia, my hometown, and I got a job as a kitchen and bathroom tiler, a laborer's assistant. And I loved this job, getting my hands dirty, and I had a great boss. 3 months into the job, I had a hammer and a chisel, and I was tapping away at something. My safety glasses were on my head, and I tried to remove a piece of wood that was stuck in a door frame on a renovation job that we were doing. And I tapped with the hammer 2 or 3 times. On the third time, I hit it perfectly, and a tiny piece of metal, a splinter, flew off directly through my left eye, all the way to the back of the eyeball. And I had to go to emergency hospital in Fremantle. They had to operate on me. It was a successful operation, and followed by about 3 years of pain and suffering and high doses of medication to reduce the inflammation. And frustration led me to turn inwards. And I found this one book that said, ask the part of your body that is in pain what it's trying to tell you. And so I said, all right, I'm talking to my left eye. What are you trying to tell me? And I listened, and I had to try and listen well that I wasn't kidding myself and giving myself like a fortune cookie answer. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But like something that came from my heart that I could go, that's wise. I should follow that. And it said, slow down, trust yourself, and live in the moment. And for me, that was difficult to do because I was a really ambitious guy. And I was like, let's go rush, 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 rush. And the lesson that the eye taught me was to slow down, trust myself, and live in the moment. And so I think my self-worth development really picked up a notch there, because I realized that a lot of self-worth growth is about that conversation that we have with ourselves. So that injury caused me an incredible amount of wisdom. So I'm so grateful that that injury happened to me. I wouldn't want anyone else to go through it.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm grateful, and as a result, I've made peace with a part of myself that I didn't like.
Huge.
I believe other people can do this too.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that. I think what you experienced was post-traumatic growth. That's certainly how I would describe my situation after having my particular accident, where I ended up bedbound for many years with a fused back and later an ankle broken in 17 places. Neither Sam or I recommend going through a big trauma. It's best not to. There are other ways that you can look inward. And I wonder what else we can find out about that today. I think the shadow for me was a huge part of my journey. And now when I chat with my clients, we talk about, we have this beautiful rainbow of emotions, a library that we can open at any time and use. But, as Sam and Neil and I have all discussed before, we kind of all get, not everyone, we can get put into a corner of it, and we only allow the good emotions, and we push down some other stuff. And that's where I believe some of that imposter syndrome comes through. And that's what Sam was sharing before. Have you guys got anything to add?
And I think it's also part of society. Like, we are conditioned to ask, so how are you, Sam? And we ask it almost as just a filler. Because if all of a sudden Sam said, I'm the shits right now, and things are terrible, and I could really use somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
Many people would go like a balloon, because they couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Mostly because they probably haven't dealt with their own self-worth, and so they probably feel unqualified to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognized my self-worth wound was, if I don't have enough friends and enough money, I'll never have self-worth. And so I had to have an internal conversation with myself that led to, even if I never achieved this ideal amount of friends and ideal amount of money, I still have self-worth.
Yes.
So, and then it goes across to, even if I don't achieve my dreams and my goals, I'm still successful, I'm still happy. And so you always come back to center as a place of renewing who you are.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, for sure. And if we don't have that, what would be something that you would recommend doing?
Okay, so you can, if you've got imposter syndrome, the number one thing to do is to go and talk to someone about it. Right. Really simple. I mean, most problems in life are solved by talking to a close friend that you trust, or a mentor, or a coach. So find someone that you can talk to and say, hey, can I talk to you about imposter syndrome? It would be even better if they had been through it as well, because then you're not going to feel so alone. And when you don't feel alone in something, you're like, well, at least that's one thing taken care of. I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one. And I think when you go and talk to someone else, you're going to form a positive relationship, which is probably key to so many things. If you've got someone that you can just check in with, that's going to be great for reducing, I'd say, 80% of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It's obvious. So just go and talk to someone. And a lot of people are afraid to do that. So I really want to encourage people to do that one simple thing.
Yeah. I would add to that too, an interesting exercise to do it by yourself is to physically pick up a mirror or to go to your bathroom and look in a mirror and say, I love you. Or if you're not at that stage, start with, I like you. No doubt emotions are going to come up, and that's okay. And that'll give you the opportunity to really find your self-worth wound and see what's going on within so that you can heal and become the person you want to be.
And I'm sorry I missed. I was too slow on the draw here. Well, because this is also a way that we can talk about confidence in the imposter syndrome.
Oh, you want me to talk to you about that?
Absolutely.
All right. So this is from my website, selfworthsam.com. It's a free self-confidence, self-worth starter kit. It's 8 short training videos that are going to help you to reduce imposter syndrome in your life, to get started with it. And it's totally free, and it will just send you a playlist for some training videos just to give you a taste of some of the other services that I provide in the other courses. But please go get that today. It's free. It's definitely a great entry point for everybody, no matter where they come from.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a little out of left field, but it was like, as I'm looking at, because I've got the website open and all that, and I'm like, no, we need to come back to this, because Sarah asked the question, is there something? And we gave some beautiful answers, but it's like, no, this is the time to share. This is why we have Sam on here, this so that he can share his mental, he can share his words of wisdom, but also his talents and gifts. He's put a great deal of time and effort to create this self-worth starter kit. So I just encourage you just to go and get it, and then decide if Sam is the man for you. And I highly suspect he is. So
yeah, let
board.
me just add on to that, Neil. Thank you. That the starter kit is about 20% of a larger course. So this, consider this like a taster for a larger course, which is called How to Beat Imposter Syndrome and Be Confident, a 30-day challenge. So imagine trying to overcome, you got support for 30 days to really go deep into who you are, to find your confidence and your self-worth. This is the starting place. And as you can read right there, it's going to help you to overcome self-doubt and reduce toxic self-talk and to boost your self-worth. So I really encourage people to check that out. And I've also got a book. Do you want me to talk to you about that?
Sure. I don't have a graphic for it, but that's
totally fine. The book is the text version of the online course. So some people might want the online course in video format. Some people might want a book. So I got the paperback version and the Kindle on Amazon right now. And in about 2 weeks, the audio book will be available as well. And you can get that also at selfworthsam.com.
I was about to ask you if it was going to go audio, because you're right. People all learn differently, and the way that we intake information is so vast. And I love that you've covered all bases here as I smash my microphone. It's great. It's wonderful. And I think the opportunity to go and search within oneself, that we can go outside of oneself to pick and choose ideas and take suggestions from other people. And really it's up to us whether or not we take it on, or we take bits of it with a grain of salt, or we just absorb it wholeheartedly, because self-worth, Sam knows his stuff, right?
There's about 10 or 12 main self-worth wounds that I've categorized. The first one I talked before, friends and money, they sort of come in together. If you don't feel like you've got enough of that, you'll feel that you'll never have self-worth. Then it could be to do with family. Some people feel that if they're not married and they don't have children, they'll never have self-worth. And then there are people who've got a family, married with kids, and they feel that unless they have the perfect family, they'll never be of worth. Then it can be related to your career, your business. It could be related to your spiritual path. Some people who are spiritual feel like an imposter because they're not spiritual enough, because they have a comparison game going on inside their mind, and they think they need to be more spiritual in whatever that means, and that they'll never have the self-worth they're looking for unless they meet that usually unrealistic idea of what it means to be spiritual. You can also have self-worth issues around your physical body and your appearance. And so people feel, if I don't have the magazine body, I'll never have self-worth. Or if I don't have the right amount of, muscles or the right amount of shape, whatever it is, that they'll never have self-worth. And you can also go as deep as your identity. Some people feel that unless they have an identity that is strong, they'll never have self-worth. And you can also have, what other areas you can have is your mental life. So people feel if they're not educated enough, and I went through this as well, if I don't have the PhD or the master's, I'm not as good as I could be, and I'm not as good as other people. So again, the comparison game is going on. But I really encourage people to reflect and get to the point where they can say, it's okay if I never achieve that. In fact, I have self-worth as I am. That's an authentic place to come from.
I hear you. When I was in the coaching realm, because I didn't have a PhD and I didn't have my coaching certificate from, I had it from a great college, but I didn't have it from McMaster's University and things. I had some imposter syndrome going on. But then one of my coaches go, they're just not your clients, Neil. They need a particular, they need to see the initials. So they don't serve to them. Serve to the ones that want your service in that. And I went, oh.
Ta-da!
Okay. And it was like just that light bulb moment. Blink.
Yeah, from a business point of view, I know what it's like to try and find yourself and your brand in the business world and connect that to what you're truly passionate about and to feel authentic. So I can relate to you with that story there, Neil. Yeah, it took me a while to nail down the problem I wanted to solve and the people I wanted to serve. And then of course, there's the confidence to put yourself out there and actually begin educating people. I came to it from a point of view of, it doesn't matter if I haven't nailed my niche or my audience or the problem. I'm just going to come at it with passion, enthusiasm, and service, and kind of see what happens as I develop. And I've interpreted my life as the hero's journey. You might be familiar with Joseph Campbell and his work. I could talk to you about this for hours. I love this guy and his work. So my whole life, really, for the last 7 years, has been a complete surrendering to my own hero's journey. And it started in Perth, Australia in 2015. I was quite successful with my small business at the time, but I felt an urge to go and live overseas again. And I didn't know where. I just knew I had to go overseas and share my message with the world. And I still didn't know my message. So I'm being called on this journey. And I'm like, but I don't know what I'm meant to do. And I just thought, well, part of the journey is to just listen to the call and trust it. And so I stepped out of my comfort zone. I left my hometown, and soon enough, serendipity shows up, or synchronicity. People start coming into your life. You're like, that's kind of uncanny. And working out just a bit too well, and you start to learn lessons faster and faster. As a result, I ended up in California, and the last few years have just been very transformative for me. And as a result, I'm able to now, I'm a better teacher because of that, and I'm able to help people even more. So I'm incredibly thankful that I heard the call to adventure and just said, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know that it's important and that I've got to do it. So I want to encourage other people to listen to the call to adventure and find your gift, and then have the courage to share that with people. And that can take many years, but you should do it.
And that's beautiful, because if you're not familiar with our listeners and our viewers and anyone that's listening or watching this, the hero's journey, we're all living in this ordinary world, and then as Sam had said, there's this call, and it calls to you, and you can ignore it, and that's part of the journey, is going, no way. And eventually you get hit with enough 2x4s, you get dragged across the coals enough time, synchronicities, and you start down the journey. And then you meet someone that's your mentor, someone that's going to help you along the way. It's a beautiful journey. Most authors that write fiction use some form of hero's journey to keep the audience engaged.
So too movies and the like, after watching enough Disney and shows as my little human evolves, I can see her and her understanding of the hero's journey, and that it's okay to step outside of your normal. So many people are stuck in their one life. I remember when I was traveling around Australia years ago, I spent about 7 years traveling, and I was really surprised how many people didn't leave their hometown. And it was really quite shocking to me. No, I'm not good enough was basically the story, and I'm just a small town kind of guy or girl or whatever. And it was really interesting for me. I grew up traveling from the east coast to the western coast of Australia between my parents. My life was literally a journey, like 4,000 kilometers at a time, every couple of months, going back and forth to see this beautiful country and to be really blown away by the experiences that my parents provided and that the environment that I was in provided. And I'm curious, Sam, what do you feel like the environment, does that play a big part in a person's self-worth and their imposter story, or is it something else?
I believe so. I believe that our environment definitely is the stage for how our drama plays out. But there is the inner drama as well, the story that we tell ourselves. And we tell ourselves a story and we believe it so well, even despite what is going on around us. And imposter syndrome is actually when you doubt your success despite evidence of ongoing success. And someone could be saying, you are so good, you provide incredible value, you're so intelligent, but the person can't see it, even though the evidence is basically in their face. And that is because people who experience imposter syndrome are telling themselves a story and they believe it. So I've reframed that and said imposter syndrome is the sign of a great imagination. If you have the ability to make up a story that goes against the facts, that is an incredible imagination, and you should cultivate it, pivot your thoughts and your focus, and create a better story. Because if you believe this story over here and you don't need evidence, what's to stop you from creating an even better story and not needing evidence? So a lot of imposter syndrome is reframing the story we tell ourselves. And that is basically an invitation to be creative and to design your life. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. And that leads me to ask you a question. I was wondering how imposter syndrome can help your creativity, Sam.
Okay, well, because imposter syndrome requires self-reflection to overcome it. And reframing of your thoughts, that's a creative activity. You really have to dig deep within yourself for your own wisdom. And I believe out of frustration, that's the only way where you're going to find answers. And so you get creative as a result of going into yourself. And I believe people will surprise themselves, go, wow, I came up with that idea. Or you mean I'm allowed to dream, or I'm allowed to create my life the way I want? So it's as if imposter syndrome is a kind of rock bottom and you can't go much further. I know you can go.
Staff, like it's like a wizard with a staff saying, "You shall not pass." You know,
Pretty
there's
much.
huge and
Now,
permission granted on the other side is what we want, right?
I know that a lot of people can experience a lot of anxiety and depression and very painful experiences, but imposter syndrome is a kind of rock bottom for someone in the sense that they don't feel they can move from that position in their career. Maybe they're in a career and they want to go out on their own and start their own business, or they want to write their own book for the first time. And so they feel very stuck on the bottom. And so I believe that when you are stuck, there's nowhere else to go but inwards. And that's when the creativity, I believe, naturally will occur. When someone is so frustrated that they think, well, where else can I look? That's when the person is ripe for the inner creativity. And to say, okay, go into that. And the hero's journey, who was saying, I think it was, Joseph Campbell probably put it correctly. He says, the hero's journey starts differently for everybody. The path is different for everybody. It's like, imagine a great big dark forest and there's no pathways and everyone is at different points around this forest. So yours is going to be different to this guy, to that girl there. And you just have to make your own pathway in, like with a machete or moving things out of the way. However, but I believe going into imposter syndrome is going to make you incredibly creative because you have to start to reassess everything. You have to reassess yourself, what you do, who you think you are, what your dreams and goals are, your values. And I think values and reassessing them is like the steroids medicine for imposter syndrome. If you can clarify your highest values, that is a gold mine for creativity, authenticity, and transformation. So get cognizant to your values. Write them down. Say, what is most important to me? What like values are like emotions. They're the things that you're inspired to do, the things that nobody needs to remind you to do, the things that you automatically think, I want to do that. That is hinting at your values and you should pursue them, articulate them in detail, and then orchestrate your life around it. And you'll find that your imposter syndrome will be lifted. You actually transcend imposter syndrome. Because I don't feel that you shouldn't fight imposter syndrome, because fighting yourself is not what you want to do here. You want to love yourself. So don't combat imposter syndrome. Don't try to fight it. Transcend it. Make peace with it. Love it. When you love and appreciate someone, they transform. Like if we're in a relationship and I insult you, I offend you every day, does the relationship grow or decay? It decays, right?
It would be decaying.
But if I appreciate you and I say nice things and I do things for you and I support you, does the relationship grow or decay? It grows, right? So we do the same thing for ourselves. If you love and appreciate yourself and imposter syndrome, it grows and changes and transforms. So love imposter syndrome within yourself and watch what happens.
Years ago, I had the opportunity to interview Dr. John D Martini, and he says our greatest discomfort comes from when we try to go against our values. So we can gently be bumping against things, and imposter syndrome is bumping against our values. And as you had said, that we need to look at, you had shared with our listeners and viewers to look at our values. And it's so important is to understand our own values. And some people, I suspect, have never looked at their own, what do they really value? What do they, like, some people can say, I put family first, but when they really look at it, they, especially in stereotypical men, they put the job ahead and the money ahead to provide for their family, because that's a role that they see. And I'm only not saying anybody, but stereotypically, which is out there, that there are men that will put that ahead of what their perceived values for their family.
Yeah,
I
and I
would have
think
to say that I would have to say Dr. John D Martini is one of the most intelligent men or educators in the world right now, and I've studied under him and continue to do so around values. I think I agree with him. Values is one of the most underestimated sources of happiness and meaning in the world. If people could spend time articulating their highest values, like the number one, not your top 5, although that's good. What's the number one thing that you go, that's what I'm all about? If you can articulate that, define it, write on a piece of paper and stick it on the wall and contemplate that year after year. It's not a weekend thing. This is a new mindset, a new paradigm that you want to create with your mind, is go, what's my highest value and how can I orchestrate my life around that? And you will find incredible meaning. You'll find courage and confidence. And as a result of finding what's inspiring to you, imposter syndrome kind of dissolves into the background, because you think, I don't have time to be afraid. I've got a meaningful purpose and a mission that I want to pursue. And imposter syndrome is like, I'm willing to go through that pain in order to achieve my mission. So I really recommend people get clear on your values. And when you do, you'll get clear.
Absolutely. I've got a little bit of a a little bit of a brag. I was invited to a dinner with Dr. John D Martini, and there was like 30 or 40 people invited. 3 of us showed up.
Wow.
We went for dinner with Dr. John D Martini and his daughter, and I have never laughed so hard. He's got such dry humor, wonderful man. And I'm like, that's coming out of you?
Yeah, he was cracking great jokes. I saw him in 2019 in LA. Just before the pandemic, I did his breakthrough experience, which is, I highly recommend it to anybody. And he opened up like a stand-up comedian. For like the first 30 minutes, he was just cracking joke after joke and just warming the audience up, and
nice.
And then throwing in philosophy and insights just here and there, just to tease everybody. It was beautiful to watch. It's like, that's a master, right? That's a guy who's loves what he does and loves people. So I had a great time, and I highly recommend people check him out.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's one of the masters, and at times so underrated. I love Tony Robbins, and he gets all the credit as the big, because he put 5,000 people in there. John D Martini's just right up there with him.
I would add Bruce Lipton too. I quite like his work. There's some amazing people out there, and whether you know these names or not, know that there's a thing called the internet, and that through this magical beast that we can actually learn about other things outside of ourselves or inside of ourselves. And there's so many amazing people out there that I don't know that you don't know, and I certainly don't know. How can we get access to them? Well, look at these fingers, and we can just research people who we align with. And for so long, I didn't feel aligned. A couple of years ago, I was wearing a suit. I felt so out of place. I was told, hey, if you want to go further in life, this is what you need to do. It felt so fucking wrong. And I have stripped that back, and I've pushed my personal values up ahead of others, which was really steeply, it was pushing my self-worth and value down. These days, I'm really proud. Like a couple of days ago, I was on a yacht giving us a speech to some entrepreneurs in Perth, and I felt imposter syndrome as I was walking there from the car. I'm like, what am I doing here? And wait, hang on. My speech is actually about my journey from DV through mental health issues, through an amazing moment in my life to finding the beauty of art therapy, which honestly, had I not found art therapy, I might not be here with you today. It was the turning point in my life that we can all have in different ways. So if you don't know how to access what works for you, go try different things. Go sample what Sam was sharing before. He's got some amazing things. Go sample what Neil's got. Come and sample what I've got to offer. We've all got something of worth. Tap into you. Celebrate your Eunice. It's so important, I believe.
Speaking of Eunice.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of workshops happening in a few weeks. I'm excited because I haven't done a live workshop for almost 2 years, or a bit over 2 years, I should say now. So I'm going ahead and doing not one, but 2 live workshops. This one on the screen right now is on Wednesday, the 13th of July. It's an adults only mental health nourishing retreat. So from 10 till 4, you can come and do some drum beat and learn how to relax your muscles and tune into yourself. We're going to do a little bit of ink work, and you'll be able to let your stuff flow in a beautiful, centered and creative way, and one that will really nourish your soul. Now, if you've got children, send them off. There are some amazing places that you can send them to so you can look after yourself. Before you send them off, though, the Friday before that, the first Friday of the school holidays, myself and my beautiful 5-year-old, you can see her on the bottom right of this image, Maya and I are going to be co-hosting a workshop. I'm really excited because this is for 4 to 6-year-olds. And obviously, I've hosted parties and things like that before, but this is really my first workshop for children outside of that sphere of influence. So come along and we're going to do some magic. We're going to be exploring masks and dress up a teddy bear's picnic and using games to help kids with their self-worth and help them to overcome any potential anxieties that they're feeling. Because I don't know about you, but as a kid, I didn't always feel centered. And it is great to know, both as an adult and a child, how to align yourself and feel good within yourself without going through, major things like, self-harm, which unfortunately a lot of children have been going through in the last 2 years. The isolation is just devastating to so many families. So if you would like to come along, whether you are a parent or a guardian or a grandparent, come along to the Friday experience. You can come along for the morning or the afternoon or the whole day, and we can spend some time together and get to know each other. And I highly recommend that you do both because you're worth it. Yeah? And I'd love to see you.
Absolutely.
So, Neil, have you been doing anything crazy and fun lately?
Absolutely. But I've got no programs running right now because I've been spending my free time actually writing. I'm working on 3 books at the same silly time. 4 books, sorry. 3 fiction books, 1 non-fiction book. So I'm in the throes of loving each of the characters that I'm involved in and loving the creative process of my second nonfiction work. So I'm just putting it out there that if you would like to, you can find me at Neil Thrussell on Facebook, or come on over to neilthrussell.com. I have where I'm in the fall, I will be teaching self-publishing further. because I don't know about the rest of the world, but when it's summer in North America, especially in my neighborhood, when it's sunny out, we don't want to be inside because winter comes a howling. And so I don't want to be in the house. So I want to be outside in the summer. So I'm purposely delaying any of my programs to the fall so that I can write. But I would love it if you could come on over, sign up to receive my blog, and or sign up if you want to start your self-publishing journey to get my tips on self-publishing. And let's jump back. Let's jump back and let's go with Sam. Let's share this again in case the viewers have just and listeners have just started on again.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Neil. This is my free self-confidence starter kit, and it's 8 training videos. It's all free. You just put your name in, your email, and you'll get sent the playlist straight away. And it's a taster for a larger course called How to Beat Imposter Syndrome and Be Confident, the Ultimate 30-Day Challenge. And this is a great first step for people who, first of all, want to know if they have imposter syndrome and how to reduce it in their life. There's also in the full course a module on how to help a friend who is going through imposter syndrome. So check that out. So, yeah.
We actually had a viewer question about that, so I'm glad you brought that up. How do you help a friend who's struggling with imposter syndrome? What would you recommend?
Well, let's hope that they've admitted it to you. Or actually, I had a colleague, I'll put it like this. I had a colleague who was going through it, and she admitted to me that she had imposter syndrome, and she has got a PhD. She's incredibly intelligent, a fantastic mother. And yet, after discussions with her of saying, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to go and pitch yourself to the corporate world and do programs, because she had the ability. She said, yeah, I can't do it. I feel like an imposter. And I talked to her so many times trying to encourage her, and she's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And I learned that sometimes it just takes a little bit of time for some people. Like, you shouldn't just try to rip the Band-Aid of imposter syndrome off quickly. I would do that with some things because I'm a bit neurotic, but some people are coming to the healing game, you know, in their own pace. And so sometimes the best thing you can do for a friend is to kind of just make an offer. Don't push it. Like, let people grow in their own way. And I find that's going to create the right conditions for them to come back and say, okay, I've been thinking about what you said. What would be the next step? And that's huge for a lot of people. Don't overestimate that small step of giving people time. Like, we often say, I need to sleep on it. Give people the space they need. If you've just said, look, you should do something about this, and you have the ability, and they're like, yeah, I know I have imposter syndrome, let that marinate for a little while in their mind. And they'll probably come back to you and say, okay, what can I do next? And then it comes down to getting clear, making a plan, and taking action. The nuts and bolts. And there's nothing you can do to avoid making that first tangible step, whether that's a phone call, an email, making a website, a portfolio. But you must do something with your hands. And artwork is, you know what I'm talking about. Like, if you can make something in the world with your hands, you take it from here and you bring it into the world, that's creation. And so I recommend, if you're going through imposter syndrome, or if your friend is going through imposter syndrome and you really want to encourage them to overcome it, help them make something with their hands. Do not think that, what do you mean? Make something with your hands? Like, yeah, whether that's drawing, whether that's writing, some sort of construction, cooking. I love baking myself. I'm a big sweet tooth, so I get into that. But making something physical to help you get out of here.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
you know exactly what I'm talking about. Make something with your hands.
Art therapist here. Absolutely loving this part of that
Because
conversation.
too much people have the overthinking going on and they're too stuck in their head and they've forgotten that they have a body and that their body is a great thing to have and can have a lot of fun. When I say make something with your hands, that's also can be extended to go and dance, go and do some fitness thing, like sweat. Get into your cells in your body is one of the greatest ways to get out of your head and to shake off the cloud of imposter syndrome and go, wow, I remember what lights me up. That's how you can help your friend.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And thank you. The sad part is this hour has just like zipped right by. We are so close to being out of time. So I'd just like to take a few moments and offer some words of wisdom to our viewers and our listeners. And then I'm going to ask you, Sam, to share. And then Sarah's going to take us out on the home stretch. And since we've been talking about imposter syndrome, I'm just going to ask you to be gentle with yourself, love yourself, and be willing to take an honest look at who you are and what you believe in, and know that you are loved and you are worthy of all of your dreams. That may have made some of you worse, but you are worthy of all of your dreams. Sam.
I'm going to draw from Joseph Campbell. And he says, go down into the abyss, go down into your own cave, your own darkness. And that's a metaphor for where you trip up in life. He says, where you stumble, there lies your treasure. So go into your depth, go into your darkness, and you'll find behind that the golden treasure chest. Do not be afraid of your darkness. Love it. And you'll find that it's actually filled with beautiful shine and light, and it's going to renew you. So that's my wisdom.
Thank you.
Wonderful wisdom from both yourself and, of course, Joseph Campbell. Love that share, Sam. Hey, you guys know we've spoken about it before, that I like to use symbols to get my words out and to express myself, and I encourage others to do the same. So look around. What can you create as a symbol for yourself that you are worthy and that you are capable of going from where you are now to where you want to be, but in a space where you feel gratitude and appreciation for where you are now, because you've overcome a lot. You've been through so much, and you're here today sharing your story. Whether you're watching this live or in replay, know that Neil and I appreciate you. So does Selfworth, Sam. And we'd love to catch you next fortnight on Uplift. Until we see each other next time, go out there and create wonderful conversations that set your heart on fire. And take care.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.